Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Tahltan Central Government's president recently resigned, the District of Kitimat has made a notable donation pledge, and the provincial government is investing in upgrading a major campground.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. In a letter that was recently released publicly, Chad Norman Day, the president of the Tahltan Central Government, has resigned from his position in a rather sudden fashion. The main given reason for Day's decision to leave the position he had spent the last decade or so in was reportedly due to a hostile working environment. The alleged hostility is currently said to have resulted from Day disagreeing with the ongoing direction of the government's board of directors, along with a few other unspecified contributing factors. Day has also alleged that even though his concerns were made clear via his legal counsel, they were still not addressed in a timely manner by the TCG. As of right now, the Tahltan Central Government is still said to be investigating the claims that Day has made. Word has come out to reveal that the District of Kitimat has recently made a pledge to donate $1,000 to the Haisla Nation's Food Share Initiative. This program, which was started only in October of last year, was chosen for such a donation thanks to the work they've done in supporting other anti-poverty programs run by the Tamatec Status of Women. Even with those programs primarily being focused on helping Indigenous people, they have also gotten praise for being accessible to community members who are not of Indigenous descent as well. The choice to pledge this donation by the District of Kitimat was initially brought forth at a regular council meeting that happened on March 25th, and after the motion was presented to council, it managed to get passed unanimously as multiple councilors vocalized their support for the initiative. Around $1.8 million is being sent by the BC government in order to upgrade the Furlong Bay campground located near Lake Else Lake. As for what the upgrades will entail, they are said to include the addition of 8 new campsites, the replacement of older water lines and outdoor taps, as well as new electrical hookups being installed at 41 campsites. The 8 new campgrounds are also said to be getting accessible furniture like picnic tables so that even more people can enjoy the park while sitting down. These upgrades are part of the province's renewed commitment to making the provincial parks more accessible and inclusive via the BC Parks commitment to inclusion. As for the campground itself, people can now book trips for between May 15th and September 2nd, with first come, first served being available as well. A trucking company that was initially created in Barron is going to be making its way up north in order to properly create a location in Terrace. The company, known as Edison Motors, is said to be aiming to make its home in the vacant blue building located on the corner of Highway 16 and Highway 113/Caleb Lake Drive. Although some rezoning will need to take place if it is to be sold to Edison at some point, the City of Terrace has reportedly granted the company temporary use permits so that they can begin their work before too long. The reason that was given for Edison wanting to make this move to Terrace is because officials were not able to find a place to stay that they deemed suitable enough in the long term. Coming up next, Canada is not happy with a recent airstrike from Israel. Welcome back. Canada is condemning an Israeli airstrike that killed 7 aid workers in the Gaza Strip. One of the workers delivering food for World Central Kitchen, seen here on the top right, was a dual Canadian-American citizen named Jacob Flickinger. The group was working in what was supposed to be a deconflicted zone when their armored cars were hit. Now, the charity has paused its critical humanitarian operations in Gaza for the time being. NBC's Alice Barr has more.
The Strip today, tragedy, global outrage, and growing demands for answers after an Israeli airstrike killed 7 aid workers from the U.S.-based charity World Central Kitchen as they were leaving a food warehouse in clearly marked vehicles. Secretary of State Antony Blinken honoring the victims, who include a dual U.S.-Canadian citizen.
They show the best of what humanity has to offer when the going really gets tough. They have to be protected.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu acknowledging his country's forces had unintentionally hit innocent people. He's promising a full review. Among the dead, British, Polish, and Palestinian citizens, and an experienced Australian aid worker who spoke on MSNBC last year about World Central Kitchen's mission.
We're laser focused on overcoming every obstacle.
World Central Kitchen founder chef Jose Andres called the victims angels, adding, quote, "The Israeli government needs to stop this indiscriminate killing, stop using food as a weapon." His organization, the first to bring desperately needed food into Gaza by sea, now forced to pause its operations. A spiraling crisis putting pressure on the Biden administration.
And the United States cannot continue to be complicit in the horror that is taking place there.
As the White House plays defense over its support for Israel.
That doesn't mean that it's a free pass, that we look the other way when something like this happens.
Promising to hold the Israeli government accountable for protecting aid workers and allowing supplies in to civilians on the verge of famine.
Now over to big changes for renters and landlords. The NDP's new legislation makes it harder for property owners to evict tenants in order to bring in new ones at a higher rent. But some say the rules are one-sided and could leave landlords in the lurch. CTV's Kevin Chirac with more.
Premier Eby calling the proposed changes a win-win.
This bill attempts to close loopholes that both sides have used.
The province announcing proposed amendments to the Residential Tenancy Act, including no more rent increases when a child is added to a household, more time for tenants to dispute an eviction notice, and an increase from 6 months to 1 year for the amount of time a landlord must occupy a unit after ending a tenancy. Eby says some bad faith landlords have abused the personal use loophole and it needs to end.
What we're seeing is some landlords using the personal use exemption, saying, hey, I'm going to use this suite, evicting somebody, and then living there briefly, and then moving in somebody at a higher rent rate.
The change is making it tougher on landlords to evict renters under the personal use exemption, requiring a more formal online process.
This new web portal will ensure that landlords understand the requirements when they evict a tenant, or they're aware of the financial risk when they're evicting in bad faith. They'll be required to sign a declaration when they're doing so.
One tenant advocate calls today's announcement a step forward.
The changes that were announced today are overall positive. We would have liked to see slightly more.
But the Landlord Rights Association calling today's announcement disappointing, leaving landlords with little options in dealing with bad faith tenants.
I think that's not the fair process for the landlords here. So we are just asking for the fairness and the equality, but the government is keep doing to make the tenants happy. That's all they're doing.
BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon did mention the Money Judgment Enforcement Act that comes into effect in 2025, which he claims will give landlords another tool in getting their money back for disputes involving unpaid rent and property damage.
The new rules, if passed in the legislature, will come in phases, expected to start this spring and into the summer. Kevin Chirac, CTV News, Vancouver.
The NDP has been busy getting the message out about its efforts to make housing affordable. A new video is touting the benefits of the government's crackdown on Airbnbs, but as CTV's Rob Buffett reports, critics say that it looks more like an election ad paid for by taxpayers.
Too often, regular, middle-class folks.
It's an online video tweeted from the provincial government's account, paid for by tax dollars, singing the praises of the government's short-term rental legislation.
I live in a really nice place now. It's a really nice family neighborhood.
The opposition, BC United, say it's not a good use of taxpayer money, calling it effectively an advertisement for the NDP.
Advertising budget that no other party has access to other than the governing party to run what is very blatantly a government-centric advertisement.
The government says the video is no ad. It only costs $375 to make, no actors were hired, and provides valuable information.
I think it's important for the public to know that there's a lot of initiatives taking place that are helping them get back into the housing market or find the housing.
The Premier's office says it's routine for his team to create similar videos featuring folks who benefit from government programs, including this other one on rehabilitation services.
They share that information through social media. It's a regular thing. That was not a paid ad, and aside from the staff time to upload it, it wasn't a promoted tweet.
Videos like this are common by all parties in power, but is a trend that crosses the line, says this political scientist.
We're being blanketed by commercials from the government, which have the effect of promoting the government party in power, and that is right now the NDP. But this is something that BC Liberals did previously, and no one has bothered to reform the system because it always works for the government, the party in power.
Opinion on the street is mixed.
It's really blatant self-promotional. That's just sort of patting themselves on the back and spending our money to do it.
I think the government needs to be able to spend money to get their message out to the people.
Rest assured, between now and October's election, there will be plenty more videos like this to get the government's message out.
Turning to tonight's weather, the north coast is supposed to be partly cloudy with their low at 1 degree. The Terrace-Kitimat area will get a chance of showers, while their low hovers at -2 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District should see a chance of showers as well, with their low down at -7 degrees. On the north coast, the week for them is likely to see lots of clouds and rain, with their high moving from 7 to 8 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their own week will have mostly rain as well, but with some sun to start, while the high shifts from 6 to 10 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes districts, the upcoming week should entail its fair share of sun, but clouds will be slowly creeping in, and the high will bounce from 8 to 10 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, bridge maintenance, road sweeping, a vehicle recovery, fog patches, and a geotechnical investigation. Plus, the Usk Ferry is out of service and the cable car is in effect. Highway 37 has some slippery sections too, while also having frost heaves and fog patches. 37A has compact snow and roadside brushing, some more fog patches on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections of its own. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come is a story about a new MLB player from BC. Welcome back. A major move is underway in Port Moody, where several houses once slated for demolition are getting a new lease on life. As CTV's Ben Bilger reports, a long journey by truck and barge will see them relocated to the Sunshine Coast, creating homes for families of the Shishla First Nation.
We had lots of Christmases and birthdays.
Over the decades, Wendy Kinlock and her family made a lifetime of memories in their Port Moody home.
We've been in the house for 34 years and raised 2 beautiful girls here.
The house is one of 59 in the neighborhood slated for demolition to make way for a dense master plan community of 2,500 new homes. But 10 of the old houses have been given a new lease on life and won't wind up in the landfill.
Demolition should be the last option, not the first. And as we're proving today, there's a very viable alternative and a responsible alternative, which is to physically rescue, relocate, and repurpose many more of these homes.
The homes are destined for the Seychelles First Nation on the Sunshine Coast, which currently has a 200-family wait list for housing.
Most homes have to be torn down after a certain amount of time, but these homeowners really looked after their homes and really appreciated what they had, and we're so very excited to be able to continue that.
To get from Port Moody to Seychelles, the 10 rescued homes will make a circuitous journey by truck and barge even passing through the fast-moving tidal rapids at Skookumchuck Narrows. Once safely at their destination, the houses will be placed upon new foundations with basement suites, creating homes for 20 families. Thinking about her house of 34 years nurturing another generation of children brings a tear to Kinloch's eye.
It was just a wonderful neighborhood, a wonderful home, and I'm so glad that it is going to someone else, and it'll see that life.
Once the homes are moved, a new community will also rise from the rubble of their old foundations, providing thousands of families with a place to create their own memories. Ben Milger, CTV News, Port Moody.
A baseball player from the Fraser Valley has just made his debut in the big leagues with the Cleveland Guardians. Abbotsford, Cade Smith had a spectacular showing in his first Major League Baseball game, and despite some obstacles, his family was there to cheer him on. CTV's Michelle Bernoro has more on this story.
Right-hander Cade Smith making his Major League debut, and he slings it up there and strikes him out.
That's Cade Smith's family in the crowd as he helps his Cleveland Guardians defeat the Oakland Athletics Saturday. It was his first ever game in the majors.
It's been a crazy week. A whirlwind.
A whirlwind, not just because of his family's last-minute scramble to get to Oakland after Cade learned he would travel there with the team, but because Cade's dad, who had a complex open-heart surgery in December, got the okay from his cardiologist to join them.
He goes, "This is once in a lifetime, you're stable, we'll let you go."
Cade had not seen his dad in about a year, unable to leave the U.S. as he applies for residency.
Seeing him was so good.
It wasn't until the family was in Oakland that Cade learned he'd made the roster, and Saturday night he took to the mound.
Wow, Cade Smith, some kind of impressive.
I was out there, and he's in 2 innings, he's responsible for 6 outs, and he strikes out 5 of them. And what we found out was that it's a team record in a debut.
Cade Smith is one of only about a dozen Canadians in the MLB, and it's been a long road getting there. For Cade Smith, his love of the game began at a young age. He started playing T-ball in Abbotsford when he was just 4 years old. Of course, no one could have known then what his future would hold. He played mostly in Abbotsford through high school, almost giving up in grade 11, but persevered.
Just kept working and grinding and getting better.
Now 24 years old, the 6'5" pitcher had a second chance to play Monday, this time in Seattle.
He did awesome. He had another 4 outs that he had to get, and he struck out 3 of them and didn't give up a hit.
And once again, his family was there to cheer him on. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Abbotsford.
And now we will turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 9/100 cents. The price of gold is up $33.20. Oil is up 28 cents. Natural gas is down 2 cents. Aluminum is up $43. In Toronto, the TSX is up 37.36 points. The Venture Index is up 14.36. In New York, the Dow Jones is down 43.10, and NASDAQ is up 37.01. Still ahead, a comedy legend in Canada and the U.S. sadly passed on. Welcome back. A comedy legend is in the midst of being mourned. Joe Flaherty, a founding member of the Canadian sketch series known as SCTV, has died at the age of 82 after briefly battling an illness. SCTV's Andrea Case reports his legacy is significant on both sides of the border.
Armed with determination and a strong will to change the course of television, they wrote their own shows.
Joe Flaherty helped create one of the most iconic comedy troupes of all time, The Second City. But the Pittsburgh native spent 7 years in Chicago with the likes of Jim Belushi before heading north to start the Canadian version, and SCTV from 1976 to 1984.
SCTV alone is the impact it had on not just Canadian comedy, but North American comedy worldwide. I mean, you can't understate it.
Ron Pedersen met Flaherty in Edmonton years after SCTV's 3rd season was filmed in Alberta, which led to a role on Mad TV.
Joe was instantly cool. He wasn't on necessarily. He wasn't sort of a comedian's comedian. He was a really intellectual guy. He was really interested in many things. He was obsessed with Paris in the 20s. You know, he was a lover of old films.
I can't believe that we got something up here bigger than the cast of Hill Street Blues.
Film critic Richard Krause says the two-time Primetime Emmy winner was a shy person who happened to be a brilliant comedic actor.
After training as an actor, watching from the sidelines, watching comedy and falling in love with it. But he always regarded himself as an actor first and a comedian second.
The green's that way. Sure.
Flaherty was a scene stealer in the Adam Sandler film Happy Gilmore. On X, Sandler wrote, "Oh man, worship Joe growing up. Always had me and my brother laughing." The nicest guy you could know, genius of a comedian and a true sweetheart. From game show appearances to classroom appearances, he gave off-screen too, teaching comedy to the next generation of laugh makers at Humber College here in Toronto. Andrea Case, CTV News, Toronto.
A BC social worker and drug policy researcher said the Vancouver Police's claims of not seizing small amounts of drugs after decriminalization should be taken seriously. Tyson Singh, a PhD candidate at SFU, said he and his co-author of an article about drug seizure data about the 6 months before and after decriminalization stand by their analysis. Singh said police still seize drugs from users on the downtown east side for numerous reasons, not just because they may face a personal possession charge. The VPD said that data provided to the researchers under Freedom of Information was mischaracterized and falsely presented to show an increase in small drug seizures since decriminalization began. That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thank you for watching. We will see you next time.